Welcome to Epic Point Stories, where the most gripping tales come to life. Today, we delve into a chilling true crime mystery that will leave you questioning everything. In the quiet town of Black Hollow, a psychic named Marcus Hale made a terrifying prediction. I will not live to see the spring. Someone is coming for me. Weeks later, he was found dead. Was it coincidence? Or did Marcus truly see his own fate? This is the story of the psychic who predicted his own murder and was right. In the small, unassuming town of Black Hollow, nestled deep within the pine forests of the Pacific Northwest, a man once claimed he could see the future. His name was Marcus Hale, a self-proclaimed psychic who captivated the town with his uncanny predictions. But in the winter of 2012, Marcus made a prediction that would send chills to the community. A prediction so horrifying it would change everything. He said, "I will not live to see the spring. Someone is coming for me." At first, people laughed. Marcus was known for his dramatic flair, his love of the spotlight. But when the snow melted and Marcus Hale was found dead in his home, the laughter stopped. What followed was a mystery so baffling, so twisted, that even the most seasoned investigators were left questioning everything they thought they knew. This is the story of the psychic who predicted his own murder, and was right. Black Hollow was a kind of town where everyone knew everyone, a place where the local diner served as a town hall, and the weekly farmers market was a highlight of social life. But Marcus Hale was different. He didn't fit the mold of a small-town resident. With his long silver hair and piercing blue eyes, Marcus looked like he belonged in a different era, a mystic, a seer, a man out of time. Marcus had moved to Black Hollow in the late 1990s. Claiming he was drawn to the town by a vision, he set up a small shop on Main Street, offering tarot readings, palmistry, and seances. At first, the townsfolk were skeptical, but over time, Marcus's predictions began to come true. He foresaw the sudden closure of the town's mill, the unexpected pregnancy of the mayor's daughter, and even the winner of the annual pie baking contest. By 2012, Marcus had become a local celebrity. People traveled from neighboring towns to consult him, and his shop was always bustling with activity. But behind the charm and charisma, there was something darker. Marcus began to speak of shadows, of a presence he couldn't quite name. Then, on a cold December evening, Marcus made a prediction that would seal his fate. It was the night of the winter solstice, and Marcus had organized a special event at his shop. Dozens of people gathered, eager to hear what the psychic had to say. The air was thick with the scent of burning sage, and the flickering light of candles cast long shadows on the walls. Marcus stood at the front of the room, his voice low and steady. He spoke of the year to come, of prosperity and challenges. But then his tone changed. His eyes grew distant and his voice trembled. "There is a darkness coming," he said. "Not just for me, but for all of us. I see my own death. Someone is coming for me. I will not live to see the spring." The room fell silent. Some laughed nervously. Others exchanged uneasy glances. Marcus had always been dramatic, but this felt different. There was a weight to his words, a certainty that sent a chill through the room. No one could have known that this would be Marcus Hale's final public appearance. In the weeks that followed, Marcus became increasingly withdrawn. He closed his shop, telling customers he needed time to prepare. Neighbors reported seeing him pacing his property at all hours, muttering to himself. Some claimed they heard him arguing with an unseen presence. Then, on the morning of January 15th, Marcus's closest friend, a woman named Clara Bennett, arrived at his home to check on him. She found the front door ajar and the house in disarray. Marcus was nowhere to be found. Clara called the police, but they found no signs of forced entry. Marcus's car was still in the driveway, and his wallet and phone were on the kitchen table. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. The search for Marcus Hale had begun, but what investigators would uncover would shock the town to its core. The Black Hollow Police Department launched a full-scale investigation into Marcus Hale's disappearance. Officers combed through his home, searching for any sign of what might have happened. But the more they looked, the more questions they had. There were no signs of a struggle. No fingerprints other than Marcus's and Clara's. No evidence of a break-in. It was as if Marcus had simply walked out of his life. But then, detectives made a chilling discovery. In Marcus's bedroom, they found a journal. The entries were cryptic, filled with references to a shadow figure and warnings of impending doom. The final entry, dated the day before his disappearance, read, "He's here. I can feel him. I don't have much time." Who was the shadow figure Marcus had written about? And was he responsible for the psychic's disappearance? As news of Marcus's disappearance spread, the town of Black Hollow was gripped by fear. People began to lock their doors at night, afraid that the shadow figure might come for them next. Some claimed to have seen a tall, dark figure lurking in the woods. Others reported strange noises outside their homes. The police tried to reassure the public, but with no leads and no suspects, their efforts fell flat. The town was on edge, and the mystery of Marcus Hale's disappearance only deepened. Then, on February 3rd, a break in the case. A group of hikers, exploring the woods on the outskirts of town, stumbled upon a shallow grave. Inside was the body of Marcus Hale. The scene was gruesome. Marcus's hands were bound, and his throat had been slit. But what shocked investigators most was the condition of the body. Despite the freezing temperatures, there were signs of decomposition, signs that suggested Marcus had been killed shortly after his disappearance, but his body had been kept somewhere warm before being dumped in the woods. The psychic who predicted his own murder had been right. But who had killed him, and why? With Marcus Hale's body discovered, the investigation shifted from a missing persons case to a full-blown homicide. The Black Hollow Police Department, now assisted by state investigators, began to scrutinize everyone in Marcus's inner circle. First, there was Clara Bennett, Marcus's closest friend and confidant. Clara had been the one to report him missing, but detectives couldn't ignore the fact that she was the last person to see him alive. Clara had been a fixture in Marcus's life for over a decade, helping him run his shop and organize his events. But as investigators dug deeper, they uncovered a strained relationship. Clara had recently loaned Marcus a significant amount of money, and some speculated that she had grown resentful when he failed to repay her. Then there was Daniel Graves, a local handyman who had done odd jobs for Marcus over the years. Daniel had a criminal record, a DUI and a domestic violence charge, and neighbors reported hearing him argue with Marcus just weeks before the disappearance. Daniel claimed it was over unpaid work, but detectives weren't so sure. Finally, there was Lydia Marsh, a former client of Marcus's who had become obsessed with him. Lydia had been visiting Marcus regularly for readings, often showing up unannounced at his home. She had even been banned from his shop after an altercation with another customer. Lydia's behavior raised red flags. But did she have the capacity for murder? As investigators pieced together the timeline of Marcus's final days, one thing became clear. Someone in his inner circle was lying. Marcus Hale's journal became a focal point of the investigation. The entries, written in his distinctive, looping handwriting, were filled with references to a shadow figure and warnings of betrayal. But one entry, dated just days before his disappearance, stood out. "I've uncovered something I shouldn't have," Marcus wrote. "A secret that could destroy everything. They'll come for me now. I know they will." What secret had Marcus uncovered? And who was he referring to? Detectives began to suspect that Marcus's murder was not random. It was personal. Someone had killed him to keep him quiet. But as investigators dug deeper, they uncovered a web of lies and deceit that extended far beyond Marcus's inner circle. Black Hollow was not the idyllic town it appeared to be. Beneath the surface, there were secrets that Marcus Hale may have stumbled upon. One such secret involved the town's former mayor, Richard Langston. Richard had resigned abruptly in 2010, citing health reasons, but rumors swirled that he had been involved in a corruption scandal. Marcus had been seen meeting with Richard several times in the months leading up to his death. Was it possible that Marcus had learned something incriminating? Then there was the case of a local woman, Sarah Whitaker, who had gone missing in 2008. Her disappearance had never been solved. But Marcus had once claimed to have a vision about her fate. He told her family that she was at peace, but some wondered if he knew more than he let on. As the investigation widened, detectives began to suspect that Marcus Hale's murder was connected to something much larger, a conspiracy that reached into the highest levels of Black Hollow's power structure. But proving it would be another matter entirely. The The psychic who predicted his own murder had been right. But as the list of suspects grew, so did the questions. Who had the most to lose? And who was willing to kill to protect their secrets? For weeks, the investigation into Marcus Hale's murder had stalled. Detectives had interviewed dozens of people, followed countless leads, and yet the killer remained elusive. But then, on a cold February morning, an anonymous tip changed everything. The call came into Black Hollow Police Department's tip line. The voice on the other end was distorted, as if the caller was using a voice changer. They said only one thing: check the storage unit. The answers are there. The call lasted less than 10 seconds, but it was enough. Detectives traced the call to a payphone on the outskirts of town, but the caller was long gone. The storage unit in question belonged to Marcus Hale. It was located just outside of Black Hollow, in a facility he had rented under a pseudonym. When detectives arrived, they found a unit filled with boxes, files, and strange artifacts, a treasure trove of Marcus's personal belongings. But it was what they found buried beneath the clutter that sent shockwaves through the investigation. Inside the storage unit, detectives uncovered a locked metal box. When they pried it open, they found a collection of documents, photographs, and audio recordings. Among the items was a handwritten list of names, local officials, business owners, and even law enforcement officers. Next to each name was a dollar amount, ranging from a few hundred to several $1,000s. At first, the list seemed innocuous, but as detectives dug deeper, they realized what they were looking at: a detailed record of bribes and payoffs. Marcus Hale had been documenting a corruption ring that had been operating in Black Hollow for years. But the most damning piece of evidence was an audio recording. It was dated just days before Marcus's disappearance. On the tape, Marcus could be heard confronting an unidentified man. "You think you can silence me?" Marcus said, his voice trembling with anger. "I know what you've done. I know everything. And if anything happens to me, the truth will come out." The man on the other end of the conversation responded with a chilling threat. "You're playing a dangerous game, Marcus. You don't know who you're dealing with." The recording was a smoking gun. But who was the man on the other end of the line? Armed with the new evidence, detectives began to tighten the noose. They re-interviewed everyone on Marcus's list, pressing them for answers. It was Clara Bennett who finally cracked. Under intense questioning, Clara admitted that she had known about Marcus's investigation into the corruption ring. She claimed that Marcus had confided in her, telling her that he was close to exposing the truth. But Clara had warned him to stop, fearing for his safety. "He wouldn't listen," Clara said, tears streaming down her face. He thought he was untouchable, but they were watching him. They were always watching him. Clara's confession led detectives to a shocking revelation. The man on the audio recording was none other than Richard Langston, the former mayor of Black Hollow. The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place. But as investigators closed in on the truth, they realized that Marcus Hale's murder was just the tip of the iceberg. With Clara Bennett's confession and the damning audio recording, detectives had everything they needed to bring Richard Langston in for questioning. The former mayor, now living in quiet retirement, was visibly shaken when officers arrived at his home. At first, Langston denied everything. He claimed the audio recording was fabricated, a desperate attempt by Marcus Hale to frame him. But as detectives presented the evidence, the list of names, the bribe amounts, and Clara's testimony, Langston's facade began to crumble. Then, in a moment of startling clarity, Langston broke. Marcus was going to ruin everything, he said, his voice trembling. He was going to expose us all. I didn't want to hurt him, but I didn't have a choice. Langston confessed to orchestrating Marcus Hale's murder. He had hired a hitman, a local drifter with a history of violence, to silence Marcus before he could go public with his findings. But as shocking as Langston's confession was, it was only the beginning. Richard Langston's arrest sent shockwaves through Black Hollow. But the investigation didn't stop with him. Detectives began to unravel a web of corruption that reached into every corner of the town. The list of names in Marcus Hale's storage unit implicated local business owners, law enforcement officers, and even members of the town council. For years, they had been accepting bribes, embezzling funds, and covering up crimes. Marcus had stumbled upon their secrets, and he had paid the ultimate price. But there was one name on the list that stood out: Daniel Graves, the handyman who had done odd jobs for Marcus. When detectives confronted Daniel Graves, they expected him to deny any involvement, but instead, he broke down in tears. "I didn't want to do it," Daniel said, "but they threatened my family. They said if I didn't help them, my wife and kids would pay the price." Daniel confessed to being the hitman Richard Langston had hired. He had lured Marcus to his home under the guise of fixing a leak, then bound him and slit his throat. After the murder, Daniel had helped Langston move Marcus's body to the storage unit, where it was kept until it could be safely disposed of in the woods. But there was one final twist. As detectives dug deeper, they discovered that Marcus Hale had anticipated his own murder. In a hidden compartment of his journal, they found a letter addressed to Clara Bennett. "If you're reading this, it means I'm gone," Marcus wrote. "But don't mourn for me. I knew this was coming. I saw it in my visions. The truth will come out, and justice will be served." Marcus Hale had predicted his own murder, and he had ensured that his killers would be brought to justice. In the end, Richard Langston and Daniel Graves were convicted of Marcus Hale's murder and sentenced to life in prison. The corruption ring was dismantled, and Black Hollow began the long process of healing. But the story of Marcus Hale, the psychic who predicted his own murder, remains a haunting reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of even the most peaceful towns. Marcus Hale's final prediction had come true, but in the end, it was not his death that defined him. It was his courage to stand up to the shadows, even when he knew the cost. Marcus Hale's story is a haunting reminder that sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction. If you were captivated by this tale, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Epic Point Stories for more gripping true crime mysteries and untold tales. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a story. And remember, some secrets are buried for a reason.